Okay, we got a quick demonstration here for field dressing a deer. The basic tools that I like to use for field dressing are easily carried in a fanny pack right here. Start off with a pair of latex gloves that I keep in a Ziploc bag. The reason for that is when I am done, you can take the gloves off, put them right back in the bag. I also carry a pack of some handy wipes, wipe off any blood that's on me. The soiled ones can also be disposed of right back into this bag. Throw everything back in the bag, zip it up, carry it out. So it's always carry out what you carry in when you're field dressing a deer. The other two tools that I find that work the best is just one, your standard knife. This is just a standard buck knife. It's about 20 bucks at Gander Mountain or Cabela's. That length of a blade is about more than enough for field dressing a deer. The other tool that I found that works really well is called a Gerber pelvic bone saw, and this is a saw that can use to cut the pelvic bone. The technique that I use for field dressing deer is I like to cut that bone, and then when I remove all the internal organs, they easily roll out. And this saw has got the blunt end on it so that when you get it down around the pelvic bone and start cutting, you're not hitting any of the internal organs, the bladder that's underneath the pelvic bone. So these are the basic tools. We have a deer that's just been killed here. It's October 1st of 2008, so it's a couple weeks into the Minnesota deer season for 2008, so I'll get myself positioned here and get started. So the thing to always remember is kind of position your stuff where you can get to it. It's easy to kind of lose track of stuff in the dark, but we'll kind of take our time as we go through this, and hopefully we should be done in probably under 10 minutes. But you know, as you get experience field dressing deer, you know, the first time, just take your time. You know, make sure that you're doing things properly, and then every time after that, things get a little bit better, and those things go a little bit quicker. So what we have here is a yearling, or well, actually it's a buck fawn. So this is kind of a good way to start. So what I like to do is when I start with a buck, is to grab it by the penis area here, and you would take and you pull it up and get the skin cut around it. You want to get down and around the testicles on it. The urinary tract on a buck will run just underneath the skin and follow right down here. So as we go with this, we'll cut that around and we'll pull it all the way back down to here. We get down to the anus area, and then you can just put some slits around the anus and then hang the whole thing off. With a doe, if you have an adult doe, an easy way to start is with the udder that's right here. You just pull the skin up and get started with a knife and cut all the way around. You just cut that whole udder right off. Just pull it back, and where all the membranes are, separate it and take that off and set it aside. With doe, then you'll end up with the same type of a situation where you'll have a nice piece of skin here that's already been cut. Take and trace that all the way down, cut around the anus, and then you're basically in the same position that you would be with a buck. The basic steps that you go through with field dressing a deer is, you know, the first step is to get the reproductive organs out of the way. Make sure that the urinary tract is off the deer so that you're not going to spill any urine as you go along. I'll show you that. Then we cut down to the pelvic bone through the hams here. Then we take our bone saw, and then we'll cut through that pelvic bone. You know, we'll leave everything else as is until we get all that done. Then after that, we work our way up. We'll cut up through the abdomen area here and the internal wall, the stomach wall. We'll go through the chest all the way up into the neck. Then it's just basically cut the diaphragm back and then peel everything out. It's relatively quick, and we'll get rolling here. I'm going to open up this bag so it's ready when I'm done, and I don't have to get any blood or anything on that. So here we go. So I'm left-handed, so I'm going to be operating like that. So again, just grab the penis on a buck and you just start peeling it away, and just be real careful. There's no need to go into any of the meat at this point. So you're just pulling and just, as you can see, you just cut back, and then you can kind of see just a little bit of the membranes and some of that. And then now you can see that the urinary tract, which is rather, it's kind of small on this buck, but if we just continue to just cut the skin back and do the same on both sides, because what we want to do is take the whole, there's the urinary tract now, that's the tract that is, goes from the bladder, so we want to just kind of keep that out of the way. Right there, you can see it. We'll take and get this sliced all the way down to around the anus. Just very carefully kind of just gets kind of started around. There's really no need to go too crazy. At the end of the field dressing, everything will come out the end, and then you just cut that part off and you'll be done. So very carefully, what we're trying to do here is just get to the base of the pelvic bone here. That's all we're really looking for. So just carefully cut. Don't want to cut through that urinary tract. And then we get it, and we can see now there's the bone. Now that's the pelvic bone, that's the back part of it. You can see my finger sliding in there. So now the next step is we'll just very carefully cut between the hams here to go down to that bone. And what we're trying to do, we have one side, we want to try and get to the other side. This is a very freshly killed deer, but it's still warm enough that his stomach and stuff has started to kind of swell a little bit. But so now you can see that there's now some blood coming out of there. The arrow did end up going through the abdominal cavity a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit of a mess in there, but not too bad. So now we have ourselves, I'll set my knife down. We have the back side of the pelvic bone, the front side, and now this is where this tool comes in. We'll just stick that in there, and then very carefully just cut down through the pelvic bone. On a small deer like this, it's really not, oh, that's the one thing we didn't want to do. That's one thing you kind of want to be careful. That was the bladder that kind of blew on that one. So now we got everything kind of cleared out of the way. We work our way up to the sternum. Good way to do that is get your two fingers inside there and kind of spread, and you want to pull up and then stick your knife in upside down. And you want to, this is going to be a little bit tougher because he does have a pretty tight belly right now, but just very carefully keeping it between the fingers, just want to slowly work your way up. Just do that, and this is just where you just take your time, keep your fingers out of there. It's very touchy right now. He has a pretty tight belly. I don't want to slice open any more than I have to of the abdominal, the organs in the abdomen, the stomach, or any of that. So as I'm going through two things here. There's the hide and then the abdomen wall. Working that up. Okay, now I can kind of feel that I've come to the sternum. Then the next step now is to get up into the sternum. Now there's two ways to go about this. What you want to do is you want to take and cut this all the way up. On a larger deer, you might take a saw to do that. With this deer here, it should be no problem to just use the knife to cut through the rib cage and go right up. So what we'll do is I'll have my cameraman grab that front leg, and then we'll just kind of cut our way right all the way up to the neck. Alright, so now we have them kind of opened up. You can see how tight the belly gets on these things. The diaphragm is a membrane that separates the thoracic cavity from from the abdomen, and that's this piece of muscle right here. What you need to do is you have to kind of hold them open. You want to get that diaphragm kind of cut down on both sides to kind of get that out of the way. That will hold you up as you turn, and then you start to pull all of the insides of this thing out. So we got one more side here to work on. Okay. All right. Next step. If you've got a trophy deer, you don't want to really go any farther than this. So what you'll see, you'll have to reach in and do the next steps. If you have a trophy deer that you want to mount, you want to keep the hide together from the back of the legs forward, so a taxidermist will be able to do a good mount on you. But what you want to do is you want to get in front of the heart, which is right here. You grab a hold of the esophagus or the throat, which is right there, and that's kind of like my little handle. So then I'll cut that off, and without letting go. So now you can set the knife down, and it's just a matter of hanging on and just pulling backwards. And you can just continue to kind of pull, and you can see how everything just kind of rolls out. So we get a knife here, because I didn't get all the way around the anus before, and I had done that. So what I'll do is just kind of cut it off here. You just want to find out how it is and just cut that skin off, and then that's it. Now you move the guts out of the way. We have our deer very well cleaned out. Still got a lot of trauma on the inside. This is all just coagulated blood. Again, it's a small one. Just roll him over and kind of let things drain out. Come back and you can look at the shot on the arrow, and you can see that it did go right through the lungs. Very good shot. This deer didn't make it probably more than about 50 yards. So now we have things done. We go back to that original Ziploc bag. Just peel off your gloves. You can drop them in the bag. Take one of your handy wipe rags. So as you can see, I have very little blood on me. I'll just wipe it off very quickly. I can use this opportunity to clean up the knife a little bit. I'll take this back, clean it up better when I get back to the house. And clean up the bone saw. And that can go right back in this bag too. And then we got all of our waste taken care of, and we just take all that back with us. So it's a matter of just putting it all back together. So that's kind of a real quick look at how you field dress. There are different techniques for doing things. The technique I do like to use is to cut through the pelvic bone. It just makes it easier to roll everything out when you get to the point where that thing's done. So hope this helps. Good luck hunting.